Welcome to Topline, the podcast for the best founders, operators, and investors in B2B tech. Every week, AJ Bruno, Asad Zaman, and me, Sam Jacobs, will break down what's important for you to know to be the most well-informed professionals in the market.
When your product doesn't show up until the second or third sales call, you lose momentum and deals. Walnut fixes that. It gives your reps interactive demos they can personalize and use so every buyer sees a consistent story every time. The result? Faster cycles, higher conversion from demo to op, and better forecasting based on real product engagement, not guesswork. You ramp reps faster and close more without adding SE headcount. Go to walnut.com and hit get started to see how you can turn revenue targets into reality with the team you already have.
Hey everybody, welcome to Topline. I believe it's episode 115, but Asad will correct me. I'm joined as always by my wonderful co-host Asad Zaman, the CEO of STA, and AJ Bruno, the CEO of QuotaPath. And today we're very lucky to have Tim Zheng on as our guest. He's the co-founder and CEO of Apollo, a very famous, well-known company, a New York-based go-to-market and sales intelligence platform he helped launch in 2015 alongside Ray Lee. Tim is a trained software engineer who previously built education tech tools. He's recognized the need for better outreach solutions and embarked on developing Apollo to automate intelligent prospecting. Under his leadership, the company pivoted from a sales-led model to a PLG model, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, surging to over 100 million in ARR. Today, Apollo is valued at roughly, and Tim, you can correct us, roughly 1.6 billion, combining a massive B2B lead database with AI-powered engagement tools aimed at helping companies scale efficiently. And he continues to drive Apollo's engineering-first culture, deep investment in R&D, and mission to empower businesses to unlock their full market potential. Tim, how did I do on that bio?
Oh, really good. Thanks. Really awesome.
The longest bio we've ever had on Topline.
There was one longer one at some point, but I told ChatGPT, give me just 5 sentences. So I'm starting to structure the bio request.
And that was nothing against Tim. It was great background, but really,
no, I mean, it
really
could be 20 sentences. It just does what I tell it to do. It is my willing servant.
With a little bit of hallucination along the way. A sprinkle.
Tim, how you doing today?
Yeah, wonderful. I'm actually dialing in remote, currently here in Wyoming, here on a little break here. So dialing in from a hotel. And but really, really great to be here. Excited to heard a lot of the episodes here and really excited to be a guest.
Oh, well, that's nice. Are you there on some kind of like founder retreat with, Sam Altman and Benioff and all those folks?
I wish. Tomorrow, I recently moved from SF to New York and missed some nature. And so decided to come out here and have some wilderness and some beautiful nature.
That's awesome. That's great. AJ, how are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm 40, Sam. I don't know if you know, but I had a birthday party.
I saw pictures. You had 70 of your closest friends in your basement. It looked
70 of my closest friends. 70 of my best friends.
Happy birthday, AJ.
We had a good time. We had 70 people. There were a lot of really great groups. It was great to bring a diverse group of people together. There was a craps table, and my co-founder Eric's wife rolled 6 12s in a row.
Oh my God.
Do you know what the odds of that are?
Very low.
It's like 1 in 60 million.
Oh, wow.
I wish, if I had done that and I did it just at like a friend's birthday party just for fun, I'd be like, man, I wish I used those odds somewhere else.
1 in 60 million.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's insane. But I'm doing really well. How about you, Sam?
I'm good. I'm in it. I'm enjoying it. What is it? It is life. And here I am, grateful to be part of it.
It's a ringing endorsement if I've ever heard one.
Indeed. I'm happy to be here. Asad, you want to kick us off, my friend?
Yes, let's do this. Tim, excited to have you. So we like starting off with getting a bit of a read on what you're seeing in market. Right now, one of the themes we've been thinking about a lot is that volatility has become the steady state that we all operate our businesses in. It used to come and go every 10 years, you'd have a little bit of it. And now, if you look back in the last 5, it's just been the steady state. And so signals are important. It helps us and the listeners just figure out how to allocate resources. And so, yes, we love the reports, but we also like hearing from people like you as to what you're seeing in your business. And so any interesting signal in terms of top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, places where you're seeing more momentum than you had forecasted, places where you're seeing a little bit of friction or hesitation? What's going on in the funnel?
Yeah, it's a really dynamic time. So there's all these macro trends converging. So obviously there's the AI trend that has both companies that are AI native exploding, but also because of that, there's obviously a lot of workforce displacements happening as well. And so I think there's disruption happening with some of these more legacy players, and so everyone's trying to catch up. So it's just like a very dynamic situation. I think overall, macro it's good, but I feel like it's if in the past maybe the best folks have 10x more than the average folks. I feel like the distribution is just going to get even wider, even more parallel, where just the winners are going to take like even more than before. So it's just like a very very dynamic, interesting time in the market.
How's your business, Tim?
It's great. It's I think there's our business is really interesting. So we're trying to ultimately build a end-to-end go-to-market platform that combines everything you need from data intelligence and workflows, and we're trying to serve the mass market. So it's a very broad surface, and there's a few different parts of the business. So we have our original business, which is helping folks do outbound by prospecting and sales engagement. So that's like still steady state growing. There is opportunity though to transform how sales and outbound and go to market is done. And so that's honestly probably where everyone's trying to invest in. And to date, there still isn't a explosive agentic outbound solution or a go-to-market solution in the same way that there's one for engineering like Cursor, right? And so it's like we have a steady state business that's growing, and we're making incremental improvements that are causing it to grow further, investing in go-to-market. I do think right now though, the company or companies that really figure out agentic go-to-market is going to exponentially like it's going to be order of magnitude difference, and so that's sort of where we're focused on.
How does, every quarter all of us have to predict how our businesses are going to do. Where do you feel most confident predicting in terms of funnel? So top of the funnel versus, let's say, bottom of the funnel. Where are you most confident that what I'm saying is most likely what will play out? And where are you a little less confident? Like, I think this is what's going to happen, but we shall see.
Yeah. So we have a PLG business where it's just like, hundreds of thousands of signups, and then it converts at a very predictable rate. And so our forecast is like plus or minus, I don't know, 1, 2, 3% on a given basis. That to your macro trends question, we actually haven't seen too many crazy macro trends outside of like extrinsic macro trends outside of improvements we're doing on the product. That said, I think the part, so we can kind of like forecast if the business runs as usual, how that's gonna play out with some of the incremental investments we're making. I do think the biggest challenge for us to forecast would be we're launching 5-6 different products soon. Obviously, there's some like agentic outbound stuff. There's a bunch of other products that are on the roadmap, and for each of these, like we almost think of them as new S curves. So like we have our current business that's like whatever 150 plus million ARR that's going to continue to grow to whatever 250, 300. And just in the next couple of years. But then on top of that, there's all these new bets that we're making. And of course, if any of one of them hit, they could could go from 0 to 10, could be 0 to 50, 0 to 100. Like, I think those are a little bit harder to forecast. And in some ways, we have a little bit of like a VC portfolio model where we have maybe 5 or 6 different products we're making, and we're big enough now where we're fortunate to be able to build 5, 6 different products in a row, and not all of them are going to succeed, but we think at least a handful of them are going to. Let's say one or two might not work, 3 or 4 might be moderate success, and then one or two might explode. And I feel like that's sort of the bet that we're making at this stage of
Tim,
growth.
A few years ago, you took me through like the PLG experiments that you were running and how you're showing the company on a weekly basis, which I thought was like the coolest thing. It was awesome. It took a lot of that. That was a great framework. And I'm curious now that you're doing this with products and kind of making these bigger bets, but I'm sure culturally there's still that level of like experimentation on a daily, weekly basis. How do you converge those two things where you're making big bets, but the company was built off of this, like, okay, we're just going to really focus around the user and optimize the different paths forward. Is that still a part of these things that you're doing day to day?
Yes, definitely. And I think it's a lot more fun and nuanced now at a much bigger scale. I think in the past, just for context, we initially were a completely sales-led product, and then we wanted to be PLG, but we had to take something that was pretty complicated to use and make it self-serve friendly, and we had to optimize our activation rates, retention rates, and let's say how to get our activation rates from like 5% to 50%. So how do we do that? We just essentially analyze what are the drivers of that and then figure out the biggest gaps in the funnel, and then just very systematically every week run experiments and fix those things and essentially growth optimize our way to a massive PLG funnel over a period of, let's say, a couple of years, right? And I think that there are definitely parts of that that we're still doing. We have like a pretty large growth team that just like every day optimizing our funnels, whether it's activation or conversion or acquisition. That works it definitely works for the more mature products that you have a lot more users already. For some of the more newer ones, we're actually going back to more startup mode, like in the sense of like we would just like try to work with 5 or 6 design partners, like get really close to customers and try to like, if they ask for a feature, and if it makes sense, we'll just like build it really quickly. And so we almost have these like 5 or 6 startups within a startup, and there's not as much things to optimize for 0 to 1, but it's more like get PMF, and to get PMF, it's just like there's a little bit of magic in there, but it's like, how do we make something users love? And that is, I would say, a lot more qualitative than the optimization stuff. And then maybe the last piece is like we have some products in the middle where we already have some PMF, but like it's just a little bit hard to use. But if they're able to use it, then the value is there. So for that, it's then going back to that motion I described earlier, where the value is there, it's hard to use. So how do we just figure out the friction? And so we have like this mix of these different motions going on right now.
Can you, I remember I was at a dinner with you that Alina hosted a couple months ago, and you were talking about, and you might have shared this story a lot, but I think it's really, really interesting how you mentioned that you had a sales-led motion, but that the unit economics didn't support the sales team, and so you re-architected the business. Can you walk us through that process a little bit? Because I think you took something that was like a 10K ACV, and you're like, we got to charge $1,000 for it because anybody has to be able to use it. Walk us through how that happened.
Yeah, so just to set the stage, after, like, I would say we built a product that helped startups do outbound. We had a database, we had a sales engagement tool, and our target was, and at the time we're selling that solution for about 10K ACV for startups that are like maybe 20 employees. And we grew pretty quickly from like, let's say $1 to $5 million in, let's say, a year and a half or 2 years or so. But the problem is that we're basically spending $2 to acquire $1 because you have to hire armies of SDRs and to get leads, CSMs to onboard them, AEs to sell them, and it's just like extremely inefficient. So then we're like, okay, well, to make it economically viable, we have to. I think we had product market fit at the time, but we didn't have product market model channel fit in that sense of like our market was SMBs, but the channel cannot be PLG the channel cannot be self-serve at a 6K price point. So we had to make the pricing model more like $99 a month in order for it to be fully self-serve, because you can't self-serve at a 10K price point either, right? So we're kind of in this valley of death. So it's like it's almost like logically the only thing that could possibly do is make the product self-serve, and for that product to be self-serve, the price has to be $99. And it was just sort of like almost like a black and white thing that just stared us down. So then it's like, okay, well, there's not really any other choice. So we just had to like make the leap. So got pricing from 10K to 99. We then optimized the heck out of our funnel as we described. And it was just a little bit of like a leap of faith in some ways, but just, backed by a good amount of data and reason. Thankfully it played out. And I would say the other thing that helped is that I feel like there is some going against conventional wisdom in the sense of like every other solution at the time was sales-led, going to mid-market enterprise. So there's like if there's zigging, we're trying to zag because we're trying to compete against dozens of incumbents that are much, much bigger than we are. And so we wanted to take a little bit of a different approach to how we rank go to market.
Did you find that there was a moment where you had to bring back a sales-led motion into the mix? We had Gaurav, who's the CEO of ClickUp, on, and what they've done really elegantly is integrate PLG and SLG to give themselves coverage across different sizes of customers who just want to have different purchase prices and ways of buying. You've gotten to 150 million in ARR? Have you found that at some point it was necessary to bring back a sales-led motion?
So yes, short answer is yes. Long answer is we are doing that a little bit later than I would like. So we honestly have gotten to 150 million ARR, like 80% is probably self-serve. Like at this point, it's like still vast majority of our, like probably over 75, 80% is self-serve. And most companies at the scale is like probably 50-50 sales and outbound sales slash self-serve. And I think the other ironic thing is, like, because we have just so much inbound leads, so much organic traffic, we're barely doing outbound right now, despite us being an outbound solution, just because our sales reps are already so flooded with inbound leads. And so, no, we just brought on an amazing CRO, and our goal is to literally like 5x our sales team to start, first be able to handle the inbound leads and then programmatically start doing outbound.
I believe he's great, the person you hired, but I've seen that the team is scaling quite aggressively. So that's a good jumping off point to the question I've been most curious to discuss, which is the following. If you look at your space of go-to-market tech, you've got a couple of companies that are these large systems of record, like HubSpot and Salesforce, that do many billions in revenue. So as HubSpot, obviously a couple of billion, but Salesforce is 30 plus billion in revenue. You've got some other big players. You've got Adobe on the marketing side. ZoomInfo is past $1 billion in revenue as well. But you do find that there are not that many examples of go-to-market tech companies that get to $1 billion, because you can look inside the space you play in and you find Outreach is stock, Gong is stock, SalesLoft is stock. And there's so many examples of companies that have really good momentum up till a couple of 100 million in ARR, and then they just hit this wall. You've accelerated to 150, you're probably fundraising, so it's probably a question that you get a lot, which is, how are you going, what is the actual TAM here? How are you going to get past $1 billion at a growth rate that makes it exciting for an investor to give you a ton of capital to do it? How do you view this?
Yeah, I think our view is, so obviously like Salesforce, HubSpot are pretty big, right? And I think one thing that they've done really well is when they're serving the mass, a little bit more of the mass market, the mainstream market, versus I feel like you have a lot of these, let's say tech, really great tech platforms in sales engagement and conversation intelligence and whatnot. I think one challenge for a lot of these is that they haven't necessarily yet crossed the chasm, in the sense of like, is the average random manufacturing company with like 30 reps in Midwest using it, right? Like probably not. But I do feel like there's an opportunity to build an app that is so easy to use for the mass market and makes their life so much easier and drives so much revenue for them. And I think for that to happen, it's like, I think it's part of our mission is to democratize all this like best in class, state of the art go to market that all tech's using, but make it available for everyone. That's actually always been our mission, even in our initial app and Y Combinator. That's what our mission statement was. It still is, and that's part of what drove us from a mission perspective to the PLG route as well. It's like we want to not just serve the top 1%. It's like the 99%. And also
companies in manufacturing, and because I think it's a great point that you made. I give this example often of customers of ours that are very notable companies in other spaces, automotive, manufacturing, etc. And you ask them about their tech stack, and they're like, "Oh, it's great. I have Salesforce and LinkedIn Sales Navigator," and like to them that's best in class. And you're like, "You have Gong," and they're like, "What is Gong? And what am I going to do with recording people's calls?" And so, do you think that part of the market will buy PLG, or is that market going to require your sales-led efforts?
Yeah, I still do think for large enough deployment, sales is still going to be necessary. I think the barrier is less PLG versus sales-led. I think it's just ease of use or anything. I feel like one example is, or analogy, I guess, is like So obviously you have like Cursor that's taking off for engineers. You also have like Replit and Level and V0 who are going after the non-engineer market, which is pretty much bit bigger. And so if we have some way of making some of the state of the art stuff so easy to set up that it's just time to value goes from a few months to 10 minutes. I feel like that would be really, really transformational. And that's again, part of the mission of our company.
The thing that I think Apollo has that really makes it interesting is data. I mean, to your point, my financial advisor uses Apollo. And I asked him one time just about like, well, how do you think about that in a go-to-market tech stack? And he didn't actually think about it as a go-to-market tool, but as a data tool, which makes it really interesting from a wedge perspective. And it's like, well, what else can you do from a financial advisor standpoint? The challenge is that there's a lot of education, to your point, Asid. There's a lot of these organizations in manufacturing or whatever they're not familiar with centralizing ops, let alone knowing what revenue operations is. And so that becomes the challenge there of just like, well, you have Apollo starting in a very consumer-led PLG motion partly, and then you have the opportunity to do the education piece of it, but there's a high cost to barrier or entry point really to do that, it seems like.
That's a really interesting point. And so maybe clicking into that, one of the things I've noticed is if you look at the stories of SalesLoft, Gong, Outreach, Clary, they've all tried to become a platform. It's not like they didn't try. Whatever they tried obviously didn't work as well, but they tried. One of the things that you can learn from their journeys is that some of the things that they were betting big on became commoditized, right? Like Gong was cutting edge, and then the thing that they do is commoditized. It's a question we all have to ask ourselves a lot as we go forward is what do we do that has tons of value associated with it today, but might be getting commoditized as we go? Do you think data, as these AI tools become stronger and stronger, do you think that data moat that you have is going to be a short-term moat that will disappear and become commoditized in the medium to long term?
I think the data, so it's definitely much easier to build applications and features, right? And so if in the past, like the fact that you have like these 40 features and that take a long time to build, I think that time is getting compressed. So I think features is starting to be less of a moat for sure. I would say like for us, data, so just a little bit about our data. So anybody can get data from scraping the internet and indexing different pages. Then there's also the proprietary user network. And for us, we have millions of users that are contributing data in the sense of like, let's say email bounces that they send, we know that person is no longer at the company, for example, right? And so, and of course, it's possible for companies at scale to build that, but it's going to be a little bit harder for a newcomer to go build that and optimize algorithms over decades. And so that part is definitely doable, but it's just like it's a much harder than building a new SaaS.
So there is a network effect to your data, actually. So exactly. The bigger you are, the cleaner the data, and that's going to be tricky for somebody to jump in.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say like all these companies you mentioned, they're all bigger than us, and I wouldn't say like we're any better than them or anything. It's just like respect all these companies deeply and lots to learn from all of them as well.
Tim, something I'm curious about as you talk is org design. Your company has probably gone through the most changes in go-to-market over the last several years than any other. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there, just your growth, the type of company you are and the products that you're selling, and hiring the right people and the right fit must take a lot of tremendous energy from you, I'm guessing. You just hired a CRO. Could you take us through just like how you're thinking about the org design, how you thought about the last couple of years, learnings maybe for our audience, and then what you're thinking about for the future and the right types of people to help build Apollo?
Yeah, probably made many really great hires, made some learnings as well. So maybe top few themes. First is like, I think being true to the culture that of who you are, I think is really, really important. I feel like, for me, I'm, much more of an engineering background. And so I think very operationally and just like everything like quantitative and I think just, in the past when hiring folks that are maybe not that same like there's no right or wrong approach. It's just like compatibility and making sure we have the right values and just right MO of doing things. I think I felt like that's been definitely one lesson. I think a second is I feel like a lot of our VCs have mentioned this, where it's like, folks that get you from, let's say, 1 to 10 or 10 to 100 may not be the same folks that get you from like 100 to 500 something. And unfortunately unfortunately have seen that. And it's like always hard to know that in the moment, but it's just like, yeah, like it's like that's something that we definitely feel like have felt and probably felt acted on probably a little bit later than we should have. And then probably a third theme is I think I feel like hire folks who are complementary will be really great. So for example, like I'm much more of a product person, love tech. There's all this like running the business stuff that I could do, but like I probably do at best like a B- job. But there's folks that are A+ at certain one of these things, and so we have a really amazing COO as well who's just it's like wow, it's like having a great hire can literally like 5x or 10x unlocks. And so I don't know if there's any lessons there per se, but it's just like yeah.
What about your ability to balance this phase shift that we're going through? You've had to obviously rethink product strategy with AI in mind. You've spoken about how to win and go to market tech, you have to be a platform. You have to make a lot of decisions about what type of platform, because as we've seen, many have tried to become a platform, but what you decide to do matters as well. And maybe there's some lessons of what not to do over there. But so you have to implement AI into your tech stack to be able to win this platform fight that you're fighting. At the same time, you also want your organization to become AI native or AI first in how they do things, so that you're getting the downstream benefits of AI that you, through your technology, are selling and offering the market. And what we have found in some of our research is that it's much easier to be AI first when you're starting off as a new company or you're a relatively lean organization. It's very easy to make that core part of your culture. The bigger you get, the harder it gets. What have you learned give us an example of something that has worked really well in terms of you trying to shift a team's culture or department's culture to be more AI native in how they operate, and places where you found more friction and you've had to like work through the friction of it, more hesitation, more friction, etc.
Yeah, totally. We've found issues on both external and internal in terms of like both for our product, because we have a large product surface yard already. How do we make that agentic, as well as for employees? We have maybe some 100+ employees right now. How do we transform that to be AI natives, right? I think starting with the employee side, stuff that has worked quite well is I'll say our Eng team and has done extremely thoughtful job of this, where there is a lot of tops down mandate, but our VP of Eng was really great at just galvanizing the bottoms up momentum. So we would have these like whatever, let's say cursor lunch and learns. We would have these prizes, and for folks that share the coolest tips, we would create a bottoms up prompt library, and we would so there's like a lot of like carrot in that way, and just making it really fun. There's also some more, like you can call it stick, but just like a little bit more structure, where it's like it's starting to be implemented into our performance reviews, where there's this 1 to 5 scale of how much are you using AI, and it's a and there's different standards for different levels and different standards for different managers versus ICs, and so that is also driving a pretty good impact. And I think there's like a lot of systems that we're doing centrally as well. So for example, if like it's hard for we have a pretty large code base, and so we want to make sure we actually did a big refactor of our code base to make it easy for AI to understand it a little bit better, because it's like it's easier to understand for humans, also easier for AI to understand it, and it almost accelerated how our importance of doing that refactoring. So these are all things that worked quite well for just using AI internally within the engineering
Is there
org.
anything specific on that? That's super interesting. As others are thinking about their own code bases, is there anything specific on the refactor? I know there's like obviously specific things to Apollo's code base, but I would just be curious as like, oh, that's interesting. How could we potentially refactor QuotaPath to do that?
Totally. So it's like we have maybe, I don't know, at this point, like as an example, like 150 models, right? And so it's like, and I think, and just like we have all these different features. And I think what we want to do is it's almost like be able to vibe code a new feature. It's like, I want to add this thing to this feature and it just works. For that to happen, the AI needs to be able to understand what feature are we talking about and what are the relations between that. And if you have to search for 150 different random features, obviously that doesn't work. You also need to make sure the different layers are really clear. It's like, okay, what's the standard way to add a controller? What's the standard way to add a new view? What's the standard way to add like every different part of the stack? And so that way, it's like if you have both the feature level and the sort of the vertical and the horizontal, then it's like it makes it a lot easier for AI to understand the standard way of doing things, and then it's just able to be a lot more easy to understand.
Are you vibe coding for MVPs, or is there actual AI production code in Apollo?
Definitely, features? Yeah, definitely. Like majority of our code right now is written by AI.
Wow.
So yeah, and I think our goal is to get it to much more than that.
What percent would you say? Like, are you saying like 60-70% of the code?
Yeah, currently I think we can actually measure number of lines, GitHub commits, lines coded by AI versus Eng. Right now it's about 50-50. We're like 55-45, give or take.
Hey, that's brilliant.
And
so in this 55%, what's interesting, I saw Vinod Khosla, and he's the most fascinating guy. I saw him on a clip, and he's like, listen, even cursor is like a 20-30% uplift. How boring. What we really need is to think of creating a whole new engineer, and that should be like a 200, 300, 1000x return in productivity. And so he thinks in terms of like those type of jumps. But in reality, even if you can get your team to be 30, 40, 50% more productive, that's massive right now. Most are trying to scratch and are getting 10%, 15%, but not much more than that. And usually there's something to do with code quality. It's good for MVP, but it's not good for prime time. Is the refactoring what enabled your team to be able to now produce code that can actually be sent out in the market? And what checks and balances do you have in place to make sure that this thing that AI is doing half the work on, here are the checks and balances that ensure that this is actually going to go out and won't break a bunch of other things and will work well?
Yeah, I would say refactoring is probably only like 10% of it. So some other things that's been honestly probably even more useful is like it's like breaking down what an engineer does throughout the development lifecycle. It's like, okay, you have to write design database models, you have to like design ERDs, you have to do QA, write tests, right? Do refactors, do like hook up front ends, like write components. Like there's like just different things that engineer does. And so if for each of those things, if we can provide some basically prompts to help folks know how to use AI effectively, then like that, I feel like among anything is probably one of the biggest factors. And I think internally, like we think AI should like minimum our read binge is like should be 2x by the end of the year. That's like a conservative goal. And I think we're finding ways to try to measure to what extent that's actually happening. But I think we're trying to probably shoot for like 3+x, and like each of these different functions can definitely be made 2-3x more efficient. But you just like have to know the right prompts, and like folks that are power users of Cursor, let's say, can like be like order of magnitude more effective than the just casual users.
How do you think AI is impacting the other side of the organization in terms of organizational design? How does it impact the go-to-market function? To your point, I don't think the lack of like a cursor for go-to-market is the only thing that's that's missing? Because the other thing that's missing is sort of like, what is the use case that the organization can rally around so that we can get 3 times the productivity for the salesperson or for the CRO? How do you think about leveraging AI to redesign how Apollo is structured?
Yeah, so I do think so. Obviously in there's functions where it's engineering and support are probably the 2 functions where AI has transformed productivity the most. I do agree that outside of those 2 functions, and maybe legal to some extent, it's been a little bit gains are a little bit more incremental, partly due to lack of really great tools. Go to market, obviously we're in the space, so we're actively thinking about how to do this every day. I think my view is like there's already tools out there that let you automate a ton of work that folks already do, right? So, but the tools are pretty hard to use. So as an example, let's think about like we're just doing this example right now. So I asked every department in our org to like, hey, how are you currently using AI? How do you want to use it? And what are some blockers? And so whether it's marketing, whether it's legal, whether it's HR, and for marketing, for example, it's like one common use case is we have shipped a lot of features. Right now, we're still trying to manually write all the blog posts, all the email newsletters, and so would it be great if we just like have a bot that like every week scans all of our product releases and then just automatically writes the blog post, automatically writes the newsletter, automatically writes the social post, and then just post that. So it's like, and we try to do this. It's actually possible. So we can use Tray, we can use Gumlib, we can use like one of these automation tools to read from PRD here and build something out. And the 2 bottlenecks that we faced is like these tools are pretty hard to use. They're designed for like IT pros and versus like your average marketer. And so I think there's some usability gap that can be solved there. And then second is like it's like the data part is also like it goes back to the refactor thing. Like if your PRDs are like scattered on 5 different places, and like if humans can't find the PRDs and synthesize it easily, then AI definitely cannot. And so I feel like the foundational organization structure has to be built a little bit more cleanly. And I think that's something that we're in the process of trying to build this, like, for example, this marketing blog post writing bot internally. But to do that, the tools and the underlying data organization also both have to be better.
Tim, some of the things that we do for automation involve Apollo, customers of Apollo, but we're also customers of Clay, and we use those in conjunction with each other. It felt like earlier, I mean, like less than a year ago, that Apollo and Clay were very much in the partnership part of it, but then there's a partnership / frenemies / competitive piece to this. And I'm calling out Clay specifically because there's a little bit of overlap, but also they're growing pretty fast. And I think they just raised at a $5 billion valuation or something ridiculous. So I was just curious how you think about some of these other distribution ecosystem partners and seeing the rise of them. And do you look at them as competitive, or do you view them as opportunistic right now in channel distribution?
Yeah. So our product strategy is to build a all-in-one product for the mass market, right? Which means that we're going to have versions of almost every product, but we also want to be friendly with everybody, right? In the same way, like HubSpot or Salesforce, like HubSpot has versions of almost every product, but they still try to partner with everyone and tries to be friendly with everyone. And so and I think our view is like, make these whatever solutions, whether it's scheduling, whether it's conversation intelligence, whether it's parallel dialer, whether it's some like maybe AI call enrichment, like all these tools that we'll probably have as part of all one platform. But obviously, if you're like super advanced power user, then you should use the dedicated tool just built for that. But I think for the mass market, we who don't need all these like the most advanced bells and whistles, they could just use Apollo for a lot of these. And I do think it's definitely very mutual partnership as well. So obviously, we have really great data that a lot of Clay users want to have, and a lot of our customers overlap with Clay in this example. And so, like, really, what we found is like just thinking from what the customer wants. If the customer wants to use Clay for orchestration and Apollo for data and or sales engagement, great. Just giving the customer what they want is I feel like is a really good mentality here.
It'd be interesting to know how they feel about the partnership as well, because there's a bigger dependency of theirs on Apollo than Apollo on theirs. Like you can create orchestration, but you've got a data moat, and they need data for their thing to work. So it'd be interesting to just know how they view this as well. As we come to the end of it, I do have a question around a slightly different sort of question. You come from a technical background, and you are building tools for commercial people. What have you had to do for yourself to develop the level of understanding, empathy, compassion for your end users to be able to build great things for them? Like, is there a certain thing that you regularly, like conversations you try to have, research you try to get done? What are you doing to keep yourself sharp to be able to build the right thing for these people?
Yeah, I think what's been most helpful for me, I found, is a combination of dog fooding plus just trying to stay on sales calls and talk to customers. So what Apollo came to be initially because I was trying to do go to market for my previous startup and built Apollo to solve that exact problem. And then I do think, and then obviously talked to the sales. The sales customers told us what they wanted, which is like understand what they wanted and built it. And then I do think there's a period of time when we're a PLG where you can just like go optimize the funnel. And I feel like there was probably a year or two where kind of strayed a little bit too much into funnel optimizing mine and less
That
talk to users.
Yeah. I've heard multiple people say that. Like you can spend a year or two just like in funnel optimization, and then you're like, I might not understand the end user as well anymore, because there is beyond data, right? Like you do have to talk to them and feel it out.
Yeah. And I think and culturally, even like that's something, because I didn't talk to enough customers. A lot of our team or product team didn't talk to as many customers as we should, and so we just like optimized metrics a little bit more of a behind the scenes, right? And I think now recently I've been on maybe 2, 3, or probably 4 or 5 different sales calls every week, and just talk to customers, and I think that's been eye-opening for us, and different kind of customers, right? You have like the most state-of-the-art stuff, and you have the more mass market folks, and yeah, it's just been really energizing to hear what they want, and getting our team involved has also been really energizing for them as well. Like we like even engineering, having them involved in some of these calls, they just like feel so much more connection. And I mean, probably not the most original answer, but like that's the thing that I found to be
sometimes it's the basics, right? It's like Sam says, chop water, carry something. Chop wood, carry water.
Chop wood, carry water. It's before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
It's like the ones and twos. You got to do the basics, and people get away from it, and it can really hurt the product development cycle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Tim, it's been fantastic having you on the show. Thanks so much. We know you're in Wyoming. Go out and enjoy the outdoors. Go on a hike, ride a horse, kill some zombies, whatever you need to do.
Kill some zombies?
Jackson Hole was like the home, the HQ for The Last of Us. So it's just a random HBO reference.
Look at that.
Amazing.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. Take care.
Yeah, great seeing you.
See ya.
Are you ready to level up your go-to-market strategy for 2026? Then don't miss GTM 2025, the only B2B tech conference exclusively for go-to-market executives. Join 1,000 other revenue leaders this September 23rd to 25th in Washington, D.C. for an exclusive executive-only experience. This 3-day event is hyper-focused on connection, strategy, and execution. Expect hands-on workshops, in-depth strategy sessions, and curated opportunities to build relationships with VPs, CXOs, and founders facing the same challenges you are. You'll stress test your GTM approach, align your team, and leave with real, actionable insights from top-performing leaders. Don't miss the must-attend conference designed to help you boost go-to-market results in 2026. Visit attendgtm.com, that is ATTENDGTM.com to secure your spot today, and don't forget to use the code TOPLINE for 10% off your GA ticket.
We've got a short show today, folks, because I've got to run to record a webinar for Otter AI, one of the great call transcription companies of our time, I would say. Some might say.
Some might say the best.
Some might, especially if they paid you, then that person would definitely. Asid, what are your reflections on that conversation with Tim? Always great to talk to entrepreneurs and builders that are building such great companies.
I loved him. I really enjoyed getting to know him, and I think it'll be really interesting I thought the question AJ asked is fascinating because our ecosystem is littered with partnerships that led to deep rivalries: Databricks, Snowflake, Microsoft, Apple, Deal, Rippling.
Even Salesforce and HubSpot. Salesforce
Salesforce,
Ventures was the
HubSpot.
first investor.
HubSpot
in
used to have
HubSpot.
a person working in Salesforce office. Roberge tells the story often to develop that partnership out, and now they are going after each other. And so you can see Clay and Apollo are kind of going in that direction. There will be only one winner in that space, and it'll be interesting to see which one it is. They're both led by great founders, and so that'll be fascinating. The other thing is just how hard making the right choices as to what type of platform to become really is, because you know, he can't say this, but Gong made the wrong choices, Outreach made the wrong choices.
You keep saying Gong. Are you sure Gong is as stuck as you think?
Well, they're
they're at 300 million.
Their growth rate is not that great. They last raised at a $7 billion valuation. Like it's not a company that's doing too well. They're charging luxury prices for commoditized product. People,
this is
Man,
if we become famous, it's because of Asid. Let's. Yes, he's just. How, we don't know where he gets his data. Is it Crunchbase? Is it PitchBook? We know that Amit recently celebrated 300 million in ARR, and he said that the growth is accelerating. But do you have different intelligence, Asid?
But they weren't that far from 300 million 2 years ago.
I think they were 200 million.
Yeah,
they did have a couple down quarters in there with Outreach. I think they have split away from Outreach and SalesLoft pretty significantly because their product, specifically bridging the gap between conversational intelligence and forecasting, has served them well. And I do think their at least initial implementation of AI is best in class out of all of them, but they haven't monetized that. So it'll be interesting to say. I mean, it goes back, I think 2 years ago, I said directly, like, the go-to-market winner will not be SalesLoft, Outreach, or Gong. I'm unsure on Apollo. To be honest, we did a full review of Apollo, SalesLoft, Gong, and Sales Engagement. They had just released. It was not that strong of a product at that time, and we did end up going with Gong. Go-to-market tech is just hard.
It's hard.
It's really
getting someone's
tough.
attention is hard, and it's getting harder. Really quickly, any shout outs or final thoughts before we wrap this week's episode? Asid.
Let's do shout outs. There is a really good episode of, I don't know, maybe I've done the shout out before. I'm losing my mind if I have. But there's another Acquired episode out where they interviewed Steve Ballmer. Their Microsoft episodes have generally been great, and I obviously appreciate the amount of research they do. And part of that research was Steve Ballmer in the background. So then he said, why don't you guys just interview me? And so they did. And I learned something there. I always thought the greatest of all time, the GOAT CRO, was John McMahon. And I realized I was wrong. It's actually Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer ran go-to-market and built the enterprise business for Microsoft, which then became, it's an enterprise company. Like it's the thing that makes them on certain days the most valuable company in the world, and him one of the richest people in the world. And so I learned a lot. I think it's a fascinating episode, and he's one of us, so it's worth listening to.
Love it. AJ.
My win of the week, as I mentioned earlier, was my 40th birthday party. Big shout out to my wife, who planned an amazing weekend. Angela. But my mom got me a book. She bought me a book. It was an AI written book called Sell Like a Plane, with my picture on it. And it is all of the AI jargon. Here's just one quick paragraph, page 70 of like 240.
What is this?
Yeah, it's written by AI. Now let's sprinkle in the fun of market research. Knowing what's going on in your industry is akin to having a trusty radar system on standby. Dive into that data like you're belly flopping into a refreshing pool on a hot summer day. Pay attention to customer feedback After all, they're your compass as you navigate this ever-changing landscape. Changes in buyer behavior can be likened to sudden gusts of wind affecting your trajectory. By staying attuned to customer preferences,
Honestly,
you
it,
can
it
adjust
reminds me
your
of
sales tactics
Challenger
accordingly.
and most of
Blah,
our
blah,
sales
blah.
books. Like
Yeah, it's
It
like
reminds
5
me
books
of
combined
the
into
sales
one.
engagement book that Max and Manny wrote for Outrage. A lot of mixed metaphors in there. You're bellow
It's just,
flopping.
yeah.
There's a compass. There's a wind
So,
blowing. We don't know
Mom,
what's
thank
going
you
on.
for the laughs. I'm not sure if that was the intention, but I wrote a book now. I'm an author, a published author.
I gotta go. So here's my shout out. I'm rewatching Mad Men, but I started at season 2. I encourage everybody to. It's such an incredible show.
What do you watch? I've never watched Mad Men. What are you watching it
I'm
on?
watching it on Netflix, but I think it's only available on Netflix Europe. But nevertheless, it's absolutely incredible, and there's just so many thoughts about the modern world because the advertising agencies of the 50s and 60s were very much like the startups of today, and they were working their butts off, and it was all in office. So you reflect on how office culture, shaped people's personality. In addition to all the psychodrama, it's just really a really fascinating meditation on the nature of work and frankly the nature of go-to-market, because they didn't have inside sales organizations back then. So everything was the advertising agency coming up with the go-to-market motion that the brand would follow. Great show. Give it a shot. Thanks for listening, everybody, to Topline 115. Many more great things to come. AJ and Asa, great to see you. And Tim Zheng, thanks for joining us, the co-founder and CEO of Apollo. Talk to you soon, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Topline. New episodes come out every Sunday. If you like what you heard today, subscribe so you never miss an episode, leave a 5-star review, and share it with your friends. Don't forget to join our Topline Slack channel to connect with us and discuss the topics we cover with other listeners. Click the link in the show notes. Lastly, if you're interested in joining Pavilion, you can learn more about membership at joinpavilion.com/membership. Thanks again for listening.